This is Medical Terminology, Chapter 10, the Nervous System, Session 1. I'm going to try to give you a brief overview of the highlights from the chapter. I'm not going to go into all the course content. You as students should be reading your textbook and reading through all the course content that is presented in your textbook to support the PowerPoint slide that I will be presenting for you. So, the central nervous system has many functions. It is a very complex and organized system. It's a beautiful system. Its abilities are multifaceted. It gives us the capability, unlike animals, we're able to think at a more complexity, more of a deeper thought process. We're able to learn. We have a, memory capacity for memory. Not only that, our nervous system controls the homeostasis within our body. It controls the balance in our body, and it does this through sensory receptors that are able to go ahead and sense the many different things that are going on in our bodies, and it sends that message and integrates it with our brains, and our brain then sends out message through our motor nerves, which allows us to go ahead and it creates the actions that our body needs to take. And so an example of that would be, if you're touching something that is very hot or hot pot, you have sensory receptors on your fingers. And if you touch a hot pot, that message is sent quickly to your spinal cord, travels up to your brain, and then your brain is kind of the integrative control center that kind of decides what you need to do. And then it sends down a message through your efferent nerves to tell you, hey, remove your hand from the hot pot. So that happens in seconds. So our nervous system is a wonderful system that allows us to function at our full capacity. And so in your textbook, it does go into the nervous system. It's divided into your CNS, your central nervous system, which is your brain and your spinal cord. As you can see here, it does go ahead and have it color coded in here. So your CNS is your brain and your spinal cord. Then all your other nerves are your PNS, which is your peripheral nervous system. And these are, your receptors, your glands, your muscles. These are your peripheral nervous system. And then you have different types of cells. They are your nerve cells, and they're either neurons or neuralgia cells. And so we will kind of talk about some of these neurons later on with some of the PowerPoint slides. Your peripheral nervous system, PNS, is further divided out, and it tries to diagram this out for you. So you have your peripheral nervous system. Your peripheral nervous system then is branched out or is divided out to your sensory nerves and then your motor nerves. And your sensory nerves are called your afferent, and your motor neurons are called your afferent. And so what happens here is that if something's going on, it's kind of giving you a example of your kidneys and your adrenal glands in here. So they have receptor sites on here. So let's say if you're low in some kind of hormone to regulate your body, what will happen is your sensory nerves will go ahead and convey this information to your CNS, your central nervous system, and it, goes to your spinal cord and then to your brain. And this is where your brain will kind of integrate the data, and then it will say, yep, we need to regulate the body activity. So it will go ahead and send a message down the nerves, and these nerves are called your efferent nerves or your motor nerves, and then your motor nerves is what takes action. This is what it's trying to tell your adrenal gland, okay, going ahead and increase, the hormone or decrease the hormone. So this diagram kind of, tries to relay this, and I think there's another slide that tries to go into explaining this further. And then again, it's kind of a review. Your sensory nerves are called your afferent, and your afferent will carry messages from your body parts, either be it internal or external, to your brain through the spinal cord and then up to your brain, and it integrates it, it processes it, and then a message is carried down to your motor nerves or your efferent nerves, and then your body organ can, go ahead and take the necessary action, be it, move your hand from a hot pot, or have your digestive system slow down, or your heart rate slow down. And so you have these sense organs that have receptors, and that's in chapter 11 that will talk about some of these sensory organs, but they have receptors, and these receptors and their sensory nerve endings that allows you to feel, hear, touch, sense, and that sensory nerve ending will then go ahead and carry that message to your central nervous system, where it processes it, and then it sends a message back to your body to allow your body to take the necessary actions. And so here it further breaks it down for us as well. You have your sensory and your sensory nerves, and then you have your motor nerves. It then further breaks it down into your somatic nervous system, which is your voluntary, and then your autonomic nervous system, which is your involuntary. So let's look at this diagram and try to figure this out so that you understand it. So it's trying to give you an example. So let's say you have, sensory receptors, nerves on your hand, and so you're touching ice and it's very cold. What will happen is this stimulus, this sensory receptors will carry message through your sensory nerves in your hand. And remember, sensory nerves are your afferent nerves. So it will go ahead and carry that sensory message to your central nervous system, and then your central nervous system will process it. Your brain will process it and say, okay, what do we need to do here? And then your brain will go ahead and send a message back to your efferent nerves. And then what will happen is you will remove your hand from the ice that's causing you to be cold. And so this happens, within seconds. And, it says voluntary because you are actually moving your hand. There's another part, a division that's called your autonomic nervous system. This is involuntary. This is more of, you have it's done automatically for you without your thought process. It's almost kind of like your heart is beating without you telling your heart to, or your stomach is digesting without you telling it to do what needs to be done. Your CNS is taking care of that for you. So it kind of gives you an example here. So let's say, the example is fear. So you're walking out late at night, and all of a sudden you look behind you and you see someone chasing you. So your sensory organs, which is your, vision and your hearing, and you are very fearful, so you start running. So what happens is that you're sensing all this. So your afferent nerves, your sensory, is going to your brain, and what your brain is doing right now is it is helping you involuntary, without you saying, okay, heartbeat faster, blood pump faster. What will happen is your brain will send a message through your efferent nerves, and it's called your sympathetic and parasympathetic. So your sympathetic system will go on ahead and increase your heart rate, increase your pulse, increase your energy level with glucose. It will do this automatically so that you can go ahead and run and get away from danger. And so it does this automatically for you. And then once you get home and you're able to lock the doors and you're safe, what your body will also do is sense this. And so you'll have afferent nerves or sensory will go into your central nervous system and say to your brain, okay, we are out of danger. And what your body does automatically is, with your parasympathetic system, is going ahead and slow your heart rate, decrease your blood pressure. It does this automatically for you. And sometimes this is called your flight or fight phase that you go through. And then when you get into the rested state, it's usually, it's called your rested in your digest for your parasympathetic. And then it further goes into a diagram here on your peripheral nervous system. So it's kind of showing you here there are sensory receptors either on the skin or in internal organ. You'll see it has sensory nerves traveling up to your central nervous system. And then the same thing, you have motor neurons or nervous um, motor neurons that will travel down, and they are your efferent, and they're the one that causes action, either making your heart beat faster or slower, or it is connected to your muscle where you are moving your hand or your feet from whatever is causing injury to you. And so this ends this session one. In session two, I will go ahead and talk about the neurons and then a little bit about the brain and the spinal cord.